Hi, welcome back. This is Ed, and here you see San Diego and its glory. Um, for those of you who don't know, I took that picture from the Sheraton Hotel at the airport, San Diego Airport, and we're looking at the waterfront. This is 92101, and you see those green lights at the top of the Westin Hotel, which is just down the street from where I live. In fact, we go there on Monday evenings, 5 o'clock for happy hour. They have a nice bar. And to the right of that is Seaport Village, which is the tourist area, which has the convention center and the Hyatt and the Marriott and Hilton's. And that overlooks Coronado Bay, which is the home port for the U.S. Navy Pacific Fleet. So it's a very busy area here. And San Diego has been experiencing a building boom, all begun in the era of zero interest rates. And so now all the buildings are being opened. Most of them are rentals, high-rise rentals, a few condos, but most of them are rentals, at least at the time being. And most of them are empty. So if you want a place to live, this is a good time to come shopping in San Diego. Okay. Oh, we have Gary Sanger coming on. Have you met Gary? He's a executive recruiter.
Yes, Gary and I have had several dialogues.
Oh, really happy. Good, good. I like bringing people together. Hello, Gary Sanger. Welcome back.
Thank you. Nice to be here. Good morning, all.
Yeah, you know Ron Cooper.
Mr.
Good
Cooper, nice
morning,
to
Gary.
see you again. Yes,
Good to be
excellent to
back with
see
you.
you.
All right, great. So I hope you don't mind me dressing up a little bit, but I thought that I'd up my game a little bit as we get into the new year.
Looking
Hello,
good there, sir.
hello, Steven.
Greetings, gentlemen.
Yeah, well, thank you. Okay, so as far as I know, it's going to be the men's club here, the locker room, and we'll see what happens. There's others who have been invited, but they're out shopping or doing something else. I don't know. Gary Sanger, how goes it for you in the recruiting business, executive search?
Well, it's going well. You have to ask both points of view. The clients, we have a lot of uncertainty out there in the world
Yeah.
with the new administration, and in some, I think folks are saying that's a great opportunity. In many others, it's uncertain. I know we have a couple of major deals that are pending, as in major deals of acquisitions, mergers, and the like. And that uncertainty puts many of those on pause. So that part of it, it's big optimism in terms of what I think is happening overall. And so I would say, short answer, it's good. It's got positive outlook. And the uncertainty, certainly in the tariff world, now that I've learned how to spell it correctly.
No, two Fs. Yeah.
Two F's and one R, I know. So that part of it is we got to figure it out. And
Yeah.
it's really nice to be here. It's been a bit, and it's nice to be with this wonderful group.
Thank you very much. Well, before we move on, you recently merged or you hired some guys, a couple of guys. Do
I
you
have
want
a
to talk
couple new,
about that?
yeah, I have a couple new partners. One out of Atlanta, and his name is Jason Fields. He's been in the search business for 25 years. And Scott McKinney, who is transitioning from Atlanta to Nashville to Kansas City, and I think will end up in the Denver area. So two wonderful partners, really super experts in the world of search. And I'm just really proud to have them on the team. Scott McKinney, Jason Fields.
So, well, congratulations. I certainly welcome them to join us when you're ready for that.
Fantastic.
In terms of company public relations expansion, I'm trying to do that for all my clients. Okay, so are you enlarging your portfolio? Are you at the top level? I know you're executive search, but are you doing more placement things?
Well, as you know, we're a retained firm by companies as they want to fill out their senior management and executive team. So this is really twofold. It enhances our ability to perform. And it certainly enhances our ability for succession planning. So that I have two gentlemen here in their early mid-50s. I'm not. And so it's a
I'm
situation
not
to
either.
really make that happen.
Yeah. Great. Stephen Howard, thank you for joining us from Phoenix. You're looking younger every day.
I'm working on it, Ed. I'm working on it.
I know. So, what's happening with the newest book?
The news book's doing pretty well. The Human Mindset book really has found me a new audience, quite frankly, because it's outside the business world. It's about how our relationships are with everybody we interact with on a daily or infrequent basis. So it's doing well.
So,
Nice.
I know there's many words that can describe humany, but isn't it what Ali Shami once said, showing that you care?
That, that's a good part of it. It's really just about, yeah, showing you care, having empathy for other people, but also learning how to respond, not to react to other people. I mean, we're in such a divisive world, and Gary said, talked about how it's the uncertainty out there. Is people are triggered. People get triggered by anything these days. I mean, I saw two people get in an argument the other day at a Target because one person's shopping cart ran into another person's, and I thought they were going to get in fisticuffs over it. Yeah, and one person, was stupidly looking at their phone while they were pushing their cart. And I saw the whole thing happen from not from afar, but from a distance. But yeah, I really thought they were going to get into fisticuffs in the middle of Target because they banged shopping carts. So it's a crazy world out there.
Wow. So, Ron Cooper, you've gone through a metamorphosis of some kinds. I've been in terms of your websites. I've
Well,
seen that some of the new images there, the new approach. Would you like to discuss that?
well, it's a metamorphosis in the website, which is current. And as Stephen and Gary both alluded, that yes, we're in a world where we can be very divisive if we choose to, but if we choose to look for positive, we'll find it. And I do believe it is a human mindset, and it's involves our emotional intelligence. That's one. And what I'm reflecting on, Ed, without going into great detail and boring, is in an earlier life, I was not very confident at all. I did not have a healthy awareness of myself. My mental health was quite poor. And if I were now what I was then, I wouldn't be able to engage in this conversation. So it's a metamorphosis of from a personal viewpoint, yes, a metamorphosis in the website. And a little bit in Gary's world, we work with senior leaders to help them attract and retain quality personnel. There are some businesses who are not able to attract, but then if they do attract, gosh, we only keep them for a short time and they want to leave because, and there's a whole reason for leaving, but I will tell you in very general, broad terms, people stay with or leave organizations because of people. That's my somewhat simplistic view, but I know it to be true.
Ron, I want to pile on that particular comment because it is spot on in my world. We routinely talk to executives who talk with retained search people like myself because it's safe, it's confidential, they're not going to get found out. But in many instances, that guy or gal will say, look, hold on, let me get my door. And usually the first or second thing out of their mouth as to why they would listen is, I don't like my boss. I don't trust my boss. There's no growth. There's no opportunity here. So people leave because of people. Boy, that's a nice headline, and it couldn't be more true from my point of view.
And so I will add to that, Gary, what I believe to be Stephen Howard's perspective that, yes, as we demonstrate, we genuinely care. I care enough to know exactly who you are, but I care enough to adapt myself to you. Everyone has a unique personality. We're all different, but I hope different in a very positive way. And I want to know just how different you are in that positive way to know exactly how you contribute to my company. I want for you to know my objectives, and I want for you to know exactly how you fit to contribute. And when all that happens, golly, and I know you care, I can leave fulfilled that, man, I like working for Gary, Stephen, Ed, because yeah, we all work together as a very cohesive team.
Let me ask you a question about Ron. Ron, if I could ask you a question about your training in 2025, uh, the training work that you're doing, the institute approach. Uh, would you like to do a bit of a deep dive for a couple of minutes about how it's different from a year ago, if it is different?
Well, and yes, it is different. COVID is one thing. Then COVID caused some separation. People were working independently and so forth. So we are getting away from that, but it is a matter of learning people. And I'm a believer that in the context of leadership, leaders are made, not born. In other words, it's not, you're not destined at birth, whether you're a leader or not. Because I can tell you, if that were true, I would never be on this conversation right now. And so I chose to do what I needed to do, surround myself with the people I needed to be with, who were where I want to be in life. And so growth is a life journey. And for me, there is no destination. We're continuing on the journey. I want to surround myself with the Eds, the Stevens, the Garys of the world, because you are where I want to be. You know some things I want to know. And if we choose to collaborate, that is, for me, that collaboration is working to a mutual benefit, that it's not a one-way street, that together we're going to get there. And so, is there something different today than it was a year ago? Well, I hope in one degree, yes. I hope I am better today than I was a year ago. And I hope to be on that growth journey. And so, yes, societal differences. And yes, we have a president right now who some may say is divisive in some ways, but yes, just like the Stephen Howard was saying, the shopping cart incident. Gosh, stuff happens, but that doesn't necessarily, that does not need to result in fisticuff confrontation. If my mindset is one, well, hey, I apologize. It's my fault. I was not paying attention, or whatever the matter is. And so that's a long-winded explanation, Ed. But hey, it's all about a mindset.
Talking about mindset, Stephen Howard, in writing a book, in coming up with a plan, and very connected to that is public speaking about the topic in the book. This is all almost, and I'm just taking a leap, a mental leap here in my role as moderator here. It gives me license, gives me agency to do that. Isn't it like writing a screenplay or producing a play, where you set out, okay, what do I want to talk about and how am I going to orchestrate this?
I imagine so. I've never tried to write a play or a screenplay. I did write some poetry last year for the first time, which is really strange. But Ed, my attitude towards both writing and speaking is I start with the audience in mind. And even when I'm writing chapters of a book, I have the same philosophy as I do when I'm preparing a speech, and that is, what do I want the person to think, do, and feel after they read this chapter? And sometimes what I want them to do is just obviously go on to the next chapter. But sometimes, I want them, hopefully I would like them to reflect on what I wrote about, or think about how to implement, or how to inculcate some of the things that I'm writing about. So this think, do, feel is something I teach in my coaching to people. I think it's really important. Every time people I coach, I tell them, even when you go into a meeting, what do you want people to think, do, and feel at the end of that meeting? And that helps you prepare for that meeting and makes meetings more productive. So that's how I approach that. But screenplays and plays, nah, that's not in my wheelhouse, as they say.
And
So,
could I add to
yes,
that,
yes.
Stephen? Why in that order? I'm trying to take into that setting, into that audience, think, do, and feel. Is it purposeful in terms of that order?
No, it's just the way I've done it over my life. And I guess if I talk to a psychologist, they'd say, well, I'm kind of a right brain, rational approach. I'm not highly emotional individual. So I think an emotional individual might go with what I want people to feel, do, and think, perhaps. So I don't think there's the structure is not in that order. It's not sequential, Gary, in my mind. It's just the way I process. It's what helps me. And I don't know about the people I coach if they've changed it or not, but it's like, think of it as a triangle, I think, if you would, Gary, as 3 points that need to be covered, not necessarily sequentially.
I think in the leadership, we really have some basics. I've always, and again, I'm a farm kid from Idaho, so I'm pretty basic. You know, I played real hard, I worked real hard. Dad kicked me out of the house and made sure I got an education, and you know, he wanted things better for my brother and me than what they had. But I think in leadership, we have big choices on what to work on. You know, in these days, what do you work on? What's a priority? And what frustrates me is when leadership focuses on the wrong stuff. They focus on the little stuff. You know, that little action of shopping carts banging into each other. Well, maybe what I should have done is just backed up and hit you again if you were so damn out of it and not paying attention. But picking the right stuff to work on, point number one, doing that stuff correctly so it repeats itself, and 3, on time. So I have that real basic 1, 2, 3, ABC, etc. But I'm really, that idea of think, do, feel, that's activating in my mind. Stephen, I like that. It's giving me a visual that I can picture. And as you take one target and try to speak to that target as your audience, that think, you got to be engaged, because if you're not there, you're not present, you're not fully involved with that conversation, you're probably going to be thinking about the wrong stuff. Ron, how do you take this into action? I mean, you're an old military guy, right? Do I remember you correctly about doing really fast stuff up in the air?
Well, yes, and old. Well, at any rate, let's just say yes, I do have life experience. But the think, do, and feel. Yes, we need to be engaged, Gary, as you were saying. I think as leaders, we need to be engaged, and I talk about frequently. Walk about the organization and look, observe, and what is it you're looking for? Not the negative, but are people, are those on my staff thinking about, and are we working toward the larger goal? And if we think, well, if my perception is, and I do want to try to gain or thoughts from other people, if I get the sense from their interacting with them, they are just merely at the desk doing their thing, they're here just to punch a time card, well, then what is it that what do I need to do to help my organization think ahead? And there may be something about the culture that my way of thinking that they feel, and again, we've spoken in this forum about a psychologically safe environment. Can I express my feelings and not have to wonder whether my job is in jeopardy? But to think, feel, and I think it's a matter of identifying with our people. And I could ramble here a little bit, but I remember some people saying my feelings are never wrong. Well, I've learned through process that yeah, your feelings are never wrong, but your feelings may not align with fact. And so if that were the case, I need to do whatever needs to be done to help you align facts and feelings, which may or may not change the way you think about things. But I need to be aware of that. Awareness is a huge term with me.
Yeah,
Stephen.
when I talk about it, Ron, the feeling is not always just about emotional feelings of anger or happiness or whatever, but it's also, I put a great emphasis on feeling confident. How,
Sure.
like, if I go in a coaching session, one of the things I want to do is make sure the person comes out of that coaching session feeling more confident, self-confident in their ability to lead people. Often when I talk about thinking, it's one of the things I often ask people to do is when they focus so much on what they want to do, the results they want to achieve, and what Gary said about the deadline, I always go back to say, think this one question: how can you get other people involved and on the same page as where you are? And remember that when you're a leader, when you want to make change, you've been thinking about it for days, weeks, not 100%, but you've been thinking about it, and you've done your sheet of paper with the pluses and minuses, the pros and cons, and you've convinced yourself this is the right thing to do. And now you want to implement it. And of course, you want to implement it quickly because you've been putting all that cognitive effort into it. But I have to coach people and say, all right, now you have to let people buy into this. They need time to process it. They can't just hear it one time and then go out and execute. So you have to figure out, how are you going to get them thinking about this? How are you going to get them involved, engaged, to use your word there, Ron, to get engaged, to implement this change within the time frame that you want it implemented in. And that's what's critical to me. People don't give people time to think about the what's in it for me, or how do I do this. They just want to go out and execute it immediately.
Sure. And I'm right on board with you, Stephen, about the feeling. I don't feel confident, but I will tell you that for me, and I used to be that way, if I continue churning that in my mind, the I don't feel confident becomes I will not be confident. And so I want to help change the mindset that, yeah, I acknowledge your feeling. You don't feel confident, but what decision do you need to make to become confident? And as we are coaching, mentoring people, we can help them change a mindset to where I can tell you for the first 20 years or so of my life, I was not confident at all. But being with other people, I changed that. I turned in my mind that no, I'm not. And quite honestly, I was thinking at some point I never will be. But then I was around positive thinking people, and that has helped me change. So yes, I do want to help a person who chooses to change their mindset to, in the case of confidence, you can become confident if you choose to be. And but it is an action decision that requires action.
Ed, I have had the pleasure of being in your company many times. And you always exude confidence. How did that become? How did that happen? I'm reversing the question asked part of it here for a second. How'd you build this and make this happen?
It's all an act.
Fake it till you
But
make
fake
it.
it, make it.
That
So
answer, quite frankly, is a key power to confidence, the ability to be self-deprecating, to make self-deprecating remarks. That shows confidence, that you can say something about yourself like that. That is a immediate sign that somebody's confident in what they're doing.
So it's 5 years almost to the day when I launched the global TV, and because my 30-year active meetings and events business was crashed by COVID, and I had to learn how to use the green light as my friend and not as a worrisome thing. And to this day, a lot of people are afraid of that green light, and for whatever the reason. And I find that that is the reason for my business. Now that's what I see. I didn't have a clue 5 years ago about that, and even frankly a year or so ago, I just um, memorized some lines I had to use in transitioning from one person to another, that kind of a thing. And now I almost panic before showtime because I didn't prep enough like I used to. And so it's faking it. No, it's really knowing that I know what I'm doing when in front of a camera. And so a long time ago, 50 years ago or so, I was in front of a camera. But in a commercial, I did TV commercials in Boston and for college age kids. And so, but I didn't know what I was doing. I was given a short script by the company, whatever I was selling. And I just read my lines. So then I realized that I can't memorize the lines. I have to understand what it is they're trying to do. And the secret sauce became reinterpreting the specific words into a facial or a hands or a movement or something like that, which grabbed the eyeball to follow what I was doing and then come to a close with the line that I wanted them to take away. So this is almost the exact same thing, only more unstructured for sure. And I chose to keep it unrehearsed, no script, certainly organized with speaking points, talking points. And that's turned out to be the best practice, the superpower that because my job becomes easier when the guest is prepared. And we pre-agree on talking points. In other words, key items, key words, not sentences, because I could never remember sentences. So but key words, sure, I've got them right in front of me. You can't see the phone. Yeah, right there. And I do that religiously every time. So I hope that answers the question. I can get into
Thank you.
more detail, but
I'm a disciple of John Wooden in UCLA basketball from way back when. And it was always interesting to me, even as a kid in Idaho, watching it on TV and then moving to California and seeing, hundreds of games. You would see him do very little during the game because he said, look, I have prepped, I have talked, I have coached, I have given examples. So in the game, they got to go out there and interpret that themselves. I think we as leaders in businesses now, whether it's in our own practice or what we're doing with our clients, you're so familiar with what those services are supposed to be. You interpret then what the need's going to be of that client, and you help them understand it. You help them prep for it. So when situations come up, they can act spontaneously. I don't have to worry about what's coming out of my lips because I've prepared so many times for that industry vertical that I trust what's going out of my lips. Sometimes it's wrong and I go fix it, but most of the times it fits it. Stephen, when you're there with a leader, do you have a recent example of a client you're working with? I always like examples when we're trying to make these things real.
Example of what?
Working with a leader, working with a leadership team.
Well, I've got a couple. I'm trying to think which one I can talk about, not break confidentiality. Yeah, I'm working with a lady right now in a firm, and she's struggling with some trust issues, particularly with a person that used to be her equal and is now her supervisor. And because of those trust issues, she's gun shy. She tends to misinterpret messages and requests. Like her boss asked her to do something, and she was like, "Why am I doing this? What's the purpose of it?" And getting herself. So I was teaching her the other day about the three buckets. And almost everything, and particularly in the workplace, falls into three buckets. There are things that you can make decisions about, depending on where you are in the organization and the organization itself. There are things that you can influence, and there are things you can neither influence nor make decisions on. And people spend, I think Ron was talking about, people spend too much time on that third bucket, always worrying about the things that they can't influence or the things that they can't make decisions on. And I was telling her, I said, you got to just throw that stuff in that bucket, put it in a drawer and close it. and focus on the things that you can influence. And, you're not going to change your boss, and you're not going to change what the past. I can show you ways of developing a better relationship with your boss, but more importantly, I'm going to show her, again, goes back to that confidence, how to be confident in her own abilities to execute her job, and not question everything, not be gun shy about everything. So really teaching her to focus on the second box. She's not really in a decision-making position in her current role. So, but what can she influence? What can she change? And that's what she has to work on. You're smiling. Something. There's a light
No.
bulb. There's a light bulb over Gary's head right now that went off.
Well, your peer's now your boss, so you're a little ticked off if you wanted
Yeah.
the job. And so you try to interpret meanings all the time when in fact it's just the boss trying to be a boss. He or she's trying to figure out what to do also.
Yeah.
And you worry about all that stuff that you don't have any influence on anyway. And so when you're there aligned with what the business is trying to do, that's what we typically try to get done. I'm trying to align with the boss and the business as to what we're trying to get done on behalf of the customer. And if we're not doing stuff for that customer, somebody else is.
Absolutely.
Ron, what's on your desk? What client can you talk about? Of course, we're not going to break confidences here.
No, the trust is a big issue, and I am working with with some folks, the clients that are having problems retaining people. That they are losing people because the environment is not right, and just something about. And okay, so that's a very broad term, the environment. Well, what very specifically is it? And trust is one of those big factors. That one of the things I work with clients is creating a culture where we will always speak with each other before we go to social media to say something against each other. That's a culture that I want to help create. And so that requires a lot of courage and confidence, as we've discussed. Do I have the confidence I can confront someone? And I hope I do have the confidence to do that without being argumentative or combative. But that is a part of what I would hope our demeanor can be. Can we confront each other in a very progressive way to discuss? I just have a sense that, without you saying about me, Gary, well, Ron, you're paranoid, and or something of that nature. But we need to be able to freely discuss things so that we together can grow and overcome any misunderstandings that, if left alone, could result in something a little bit worse of what it is. And to me, that trust, which is a very integral part of a cohesive teamwork, all works together.
Gary?
I always like to make sure the elephant in the room is front and center. What's worse in an executive meeting when the real agenda never gets talked about? And so, for example, we're getting our ass handed to us by XYZ competitor, when in fact the conversations we're full of ourselves because we think we're better than what we are. Somehow or another, somebody in that room, doesn't always have to be the leader, doesn't always have to be the top one, has the brave fortitude. I was going to use another term which wouldn't be very socially acceptable. Bring up the issue. If the margins are going down, if the growth's going down, and we're all going to miss our bonus for that quarter, or we're going to miss our bonuses for the year, that is a uniting trust of a team that said, look, here are the 3 numbers we need to meet to get full bonus. I mean, in any company that has executive teams that are incented, that's usually front and center. So talking about what that is, I always found it with current clients and with past clients, past teams. Let's just speak the truth. And if we're in trouble together, rather than picking on one person to take down. I'm going to be leaving shortly. Ed, it's really a pleasure to be here with Ron and with Stephen. I'd grow a beard like that, Stephen, if I could, but mine would be awful. So it's with pleasure I say so long. Good to see you. I'll be with you again soon. Take care.
Thank you. Good luck.
Bye-bye.
So I was going to ask Gary as he's leaving. Um, do you ever not fire people, but do you ever confront people on Zoom, or is it always recommended to do it in person? Ron?
I personally want to confront people in person. Now, if Ed, you and I are geographically located, I mean dislocated, I'm on the East Coast, you're on the West Coast. If to meet with you in person is going to cost me something in time, money, and so forth, but so I've got to weigh that, and then if I can talk with you, I feel very certain through Zoom, and I like to definitely have it in real time. Never for me personally, never text or email. I consider that voiceless, faceless. I want to talk to you in real time. And so I do want for you to have the confidence that we can talk. And as Ed was mentioning, if we are in a, let's just call it a board meeting or any kind of a group setting, I know there's some people who are very reserved. They don't feel confident at all to make an idea or an input in public. And so I want to be very discerning as a leader, their personality, where they are, and I may ask them one-on-one at their desk. I just have a sense, Ed, that you've got a thought about this. Can you share it with me? And but I know it's a better setting one-on-one at the desk than in a conference where there are multiple people, because some people just, they're concerned of what some other adverse reaction someone may have. Therefore, they're not going to express themselves. But I think everybody has a worthy idea, a worthy thought. I just would like to know what they are.
Yeah, so I bring that up because it's something that I read the other day, not specifically about that, but how a leader builds leaders by exhibiting their own behavior. Stephen, would you agree that with that general statement, and would you like to go deeper?
Oh, I think that's true, and I think it's historically been true, particularly in the corporate world. Most people learn their leadership skills by observing the people that they've reported to over the years, and that's one of the problems, because when somebody gets appointed into their first leadership position, they've got no training for it, they've got no background, and they don't know how to. They only know what their leader has done. It's kind of like parenting, Ed. I mean, where do we learn our parenting skills? Well, we learn it from our parents and our spouse's parents. And yeah, sometimes grandparents get involved as well. But typically, everyone learns how to be a parent, for better or for worse, through, how they were raised. Well, same thing about leadership. And that's why a lot of first-time leaders are so poor at things like delegation, communications, listening, feedback, all the things that make you a good people leader, because they've never been taught. And they've never had discussions around it. All they've been taught is how to achieve results, and they go in and focus on results, and they burn their people out, and people start leaving.
Ron?
Oh, I totally agree with that. And we need to be aware of and prepare our people. We need to develop leaders around us. And we need to be perceptive of potential within people. And we as leaders need to be very aware of a person's potential. And we may think they are, we may know they are worthy, or they have greater potential than what they think of themselves. So we need to look for the positive in people and help develop that potential, because again, I know there are people who have, we believe as leaders, a lot of potential, but those people themselves are uncertain of what their potential is. But if we help them in a very healthy way realize that potential, we nurture them or develop the leaders around us, and it's a form of mentoring and coaching. And so yes, people are going to emulate what they see, and we need to, I'm going to use the term, imitate great leadership. And so the great leaders and Gary mentioned John, but any leader that we choose to follow that, yes, read about them and choose to follow that model. John Wooten.
Oh, yeah, right. So, Stephen, what would you like to sum up with or leave us with thoughts about how you deal with competition within staff? Just say like in a family, just an analogy with a family, like I've got uh, two young, without getting into detail here, two younger brothers, an older sister, and family I grew up in. And there's somewhat of an age differential between me and my brothers. And sister and me, she's older than me. We were simpatico. It's good. Um, but not with my brothers. And so the same thing happens, I've noticed, and in companies where you have a team and everybody remembers I think everybody remembers their family situation and then transfers some attitudes and beliefs. I'm getting into the weeds here and I don't really want to. Stephen, help me out.
Well, yeah, I mean, people do bring their life into the workplace, but where I try to help people is to help them identify the strengths of the individuals on their team. People always looking for the gaps, the weaknesses. They, everyone wants to fix other people, and I say, well, let them leverage their strengths to fix those gaps. And most of the time, and I'm going to put at 80+% or more of the issues in the workplace, the conflicts between people boil down to communications. And it boils down to misinterpretation of communication. What did Ron just say? Faceless and voiceless. That's a great phrase. I mean, email is the most efficient, but the least effective methodology of communicating in the workplace. And you see people, and even worse, I guess, might be messages on Teams because they're shorter. And people misinterpret things all the time. And that goes back to the lady I was talking to. I mean, one of her issues has been she overanalyzes and misinterprets the intent behind the email messages that she gets from not only her boss, but from her peers and from other people in the organization. So it's that miscommunication is what causes so much conflict. And then it boils over into drama. And that's one of the weaknesses of a poor leader, is a person who allows that to boil over and doesn't put a stop to it soon enough.
So tone, and it's not my words, it's the tone. I don't like your tone.
Well, yeah,
That sounds like a marriage thing.
it's that, but it's also, again, we all bring ourselves into the workplace. So let me give you an example here, Ed. If Ron tells me I need to change something, and I go to him, what's the purpose of that? Why do I need to do that? And you see my facial expressions and the negativity and the way my voice rose a little bit. That's a pushback. But if I say the same thing, interesting, Ron, what makes you say that? What makes you think I should do that? Now my head's cocked, I'm more relaxed, I don't have the hunched shoulders necessarily. That's a clarifying question. And that same words, basically, but one, if Ron's in a bad mood or he's pressured or stressed, he might, even if I did the second one with my intention to be clarifying, many bosses take those kind of questions as pushback. And then boom, now we're going to have conflict. Hey, I told you I want you to do this. And, this is what we got to do. And they put that manager's hat on, that authoritarian hat on, the directorial hat on. And instead of stepping back and saying, oh, wait a second, maybe Stephen's questions, it's legitimate for him. Maybe I don't agree with him, but it's legitimate. Let me help him understand the background, the context of this situation, of why a change is being requested. And people don't do that. And you can't do that on email because you can't hear that voice or the face. So I love that, Ron. Voiceless and faceless communication. That might be a title of a future book.
Okay. Now, and I will tell you, Stephen, that a lot of what you're saying is if we as leaders choose to have a culture that we will create, not compete. And another way of saying exactly what you were saying, Stephen, if I were to say, Stephen, listen, you need to change. Oh, that's going to get some
Guess
pushback.
what?
As opposed to if I take 2 or 3 minutes to just reason with you to help you articulate, well, you know, Ron, yeah, you're right. Maybe I need to change. Now, it takes longer to get to that point, but it is a matter of whether I choose to reason with you and help you. If my mindset is I want to help you realize you might need to change. So I'm not here to make you do something, but if you do realize that, you know, yep, you're expressing things to me that maybe I do need to do something. And then, but yes, it takes longer to do that. So when you're coaching someone, working with some mentoring, it's not necessarily going to be convenient. It's going to take an amount of time.
Thanks, guys, for joining me on the TV show here. This is good TV. And
Great.
please come back. Oh, and invite a friend. Let's grow the audience a little bit. All right, take care. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Ed. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.